November 1979, the case started. Jose was to portray the big boss. We used the name Patron to identify him. I was the person who would actually do the talking for Jose, since he would be playing the character of a person who didn't speak any English at all. And I would not only translate, but since I have some knowledge of weapons, my own background and my police experience, I would also be the weapons expert. After we met Gary Corkler for the first time. He started to explain to us what weapons were available. He inquired whether we were an army or a terrorist group. I made it quite clear that we were a terrorist group. And then we started discussing weapons that would be utilized in a terrorist-type organization.
The first thing that Corkler sold to the undercover detectives was this silenced .22 caliber assassination pistol. The entire silver part of the barrel is a silencer. They were offering this particular weapon to our undercovers as an example of the type and quality of silencer that they could provide in quantities of up to 10,000 lots. The second weapon that Corkler and Terpil sold to the undercover detectives was this .22 caliber silenced sniper rifle, which they specially manufacture. The entire barrel of this weapon is a silencer from just below the sight where I'm pointing to the end. This is fitted with an aim point electronic sight. This allows the person who is firing the weapon to keep both eyes open, watching the target at which he's shooting. This weapon and the Ruger that I just showed you were each sold for $1,500. Also at the second meeting, Mr. Corkler sold to the undercover detectives for $800 this bottle of strychnine poison. He said has the capacity to kill 25 people. It is so powerful that individuals poisoned by strychnine have been known to die in a convulsion so strong that only the top of their head and their heel is touching the ground at the time of death. The body is arched completely off the ground.
Terpil and Corkler apparently offered their clients a veritable arsenal of terrorist weapons. This is Corkler's demonstration model exploding briefcase. Terpil's forte was special purpose weaponry, including a pen that fires a poison dart through a Teflon barrel, which Terpil particularly recommended for assassinations in aeroplanes.
He described the manner in which you would do it, that being that you would walk down the aisle of the plane next to the person you intended to assassinate. And as you came next to him, fire the poison dart right behind his ear, striking either the carotid artery or the jugular vein. And then go back to your seat and sit down.
The second special-purpose weapon combines a cigarette lighter and a pen, which fires a .22 caliber bullet. The pen acts as a barrel, the bullet and cocking mechanism are in the lighter. But perhaps the most lethal product in Terpil's arsenal was binary liquid explosive.
And these are the bottles given by Terpil to the undercover detective. Each of the parts is relatively stable when separate, but when mixed together, forms a liquid that is an explosive 3 to 4 times as powerful as ordinary dynamite. He described one particular occasion in which he drained the radiator of an automobile and filled it with binary explosive.
His eyes would light up as he described how you fill up the whole radiator. And then you just need a detonator and you watch the car go up in the air and little bits were the only thing left over.
He also described blowing up the lobby of a hotel in the Middle East by pouring binary liquid explosive in the earth in a potted plant in the lobby.
He says, "Oh, it's great, Jimmy, it's great." He says, "You take a flower pot. We did this in the Middle East. And you put the one part liquid, and then you wait a week, and you put the second part. And then the third time you come over and you put the detonant." The whole hotel went up in the air. And when he described these things, he very excited about it. And he kept apologizing that he didn't have a camera to film it. He says, I couldn't film it, but it was great to see. I stood on the corner and watched it. At that point, I realized I was dealing with a maniac.
Rodriguez was also dealing with a man who had powerful contacts. The prosecution case rested heavily on 25 hours of bugged conversation. Although Terpil was absent from court, the jury heard him describe on tape his links with an astonishing assortment of individuals and organizations, including the CIA, Scotland Yard, the Turkish Grey Wolves who trained Mehmet Agca, the man who shot the Pope, Colonel Khadaffi, the Libyan head of state, Ilyich Ramirez Sanchez, known as Carlos the Jackal, Idi Amin, the former president of Uganda, and Amin's competitor in terror, the self-styled Emperor Bokassa. Clearly, Terpil wanted to impress his clients with his credentials.
He was a man who was willing and able to do just about anything. And he was a man who was trusted by people whom he assumed terrorists would respect. Idi Amin and Momar Khadaffi, Carlos the Jackal. He has been described to me by people who knew him and saw his actions in Uganda as the man who would occasionally put steel into the spine of Idi Amin when Idi Amin himself was waffling about doing something.
I've dealt with numerous gun runners and gun merchants. I can honestly say that he's about the biggest one I've dealt with. His connections, his past escapades, his experiences, and in general, his whole background is incredible. I don't think I'll ever meet someone like Frank Terpil again. I think I've reached my peak with Frank Terpil.
The jury was impressed by the prosecution's case, and on May the 15th, 1981, Terpil and Korkala were found guilty in absentia on all 11 charges in the New York indictment. Acting Justice Thomas B. Galligan recommended that neither of the two men should be released from prison 1 minute earlier than 53 years, the maximum that the law allows. In court he said, quote, "These men trade in death and destruction. That is their business. They have no allegiance to any flag. They prosper in a world at war. Wherever terrorism and torture are, they are." After his conviction, Frank Terpil sent us a coded telex from the Middle East. He wanted to present, quote, the defense side of his case via TV and cine media, end quote. We were invited to a penthouse apartment in the Hamra district of Beirut to meet Frank Terpil and his permanent companion, Ruth Boyd. The man who has been described as a mastermind of international terrorism and the key contributor to Amin's death machine told us about his work for the Ugandan dictator.
He needed some